Hey out there, ELA family. We are just here to do some more essay improvements for our ELA 9A essay on mythical creatures. When last we left off, we had started to compile some research and also determine what might be a good article, what might not be a good article on the internet, because we know there's a lot of not good articles on the internet. I had actually talked about how we do a lot of this handwritten, but it occurred to me over this week that it's not so bad for me to be copying and pasting and doing some of this, because it shows you how to do your work cited off the internet in a little bit different way, and I think just probably a little bit more efficient way, especially when you are doing online learning. So we'll look into that a little bit more today. We're going to make sure this essay has some meat on its bones before we try and write it out, and we're going to keep kind of building onto things. Now, we had made a thesis early on, but that thesis ended up being kind of narrow. So this is an important way to show how sometimes picking a thesis guides the research, but then the research indicates that we have to revise the thesis, and that happens all the time. Writing is not a cut and dry process. People do not sit down and write, books like the way Stephen King does without organizing them first and doing lots of revisions. You will always see authors thanking their editors, and those are the people who help them make those revisions. So don't ever think, oh, I sat down, I couldn't just write a paper. None of us really sit down and write a paper, even a very experienced writer. Maybe every now and then we get blessed and we sit down and we hammer something out that's really good, but not really. It usually has to get reread a lot of times. So here we go. I will minimize myself. I always lose this window. There we go. So, first of all, for our display capture, here we go. We had started out, I'd made a generalized statement, the unicorn is an extremely powerful and magical being, and I remember our original thesis was the unicorn's horn could be used to heal severe wounds, purify water, and nullify poison. But that's very narrow. That's more the topic of an entire paragraph, so we had moved it down in the building process. And a little bit of the information that we assembled in our pre-writing last week came off the internet, and then here are the websites we were using for that. And I remember I had done a search on Ringling Brothers unicorn, and we had found all kinds of interesting pictures of this goat. And underneath this, there are articles about the Ringling Brothers unicorn. Now, this one's by the New York Post, which I recognize as a periodical. It's a fairly reliable news source. It's a fairly new article. See this 2017. It's written a few years ago. Down here we have a mental floss. That's more for our entertainment. Anything mentalfloss.com. This title, the next one we see is Here's a Hideous Goat Creature Ringling Brothers Claimed. It's by thevillagevoice.com. Again, I don't really recognize this. It's not super old, but it's not super new. I think it's just going to get passed by. This sternbergclark.co.uk, it's a blog, which means it's just a personal writing by someone, and it's from the United Kingdom. So he might have interesting opinions, but I don't think we're going to include them in our essay. We come down here, we have the Chicago Tribune. Now, this is a recognized periodical, and it's really an old article. It's from 1985. So this is from when the unicorn first came out. So this one might be of interest to me. So I'm going to open that in a new tab. And then as we keep going down, we've kind of run out of information on this page. I think these two articles that we had seen, the one from the New York Post that was very new, and the one from Chicago Tribune, which is from the time that the goat was actually alive. So the Chicago Tribune is almost like a primary resource in that regard, because it's from the time period. So I remember we had the Merriam-Webster dictionary unicorn definition. I think this will become more popular for us as we decide to include information in our paper. So I'm going to copy the source where this came from. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to now paste it here. And from Merriam-Webster, I am going to take just the definition of a unicorn. So I'll say it's the definition of a unicorn. A, it was the mythical white, usually white animal. Or B, an animal mentioned in the Bible that is often a one-horned rhinoceros or an antelope, something unusual, rare, or unique. Now, these other definitions are not as important to us. These are the two that are important. So we can copy these, and we can put these right here. There we go. So now we have information that we're going to be able to build into our first paragraph. And of course, we're going to put all of this kind of stuff into our own words. But I like to get it down on the paper right here so I'm not clicking back and forth all the time. I'll make sure sometimes I'm afraid I don't click on the right thing to make my capture show up. Anyway, so we can continue going through these. One of the things, this is all the information we had found out from the Encyclopedia Britannica on how the unicorn looked, the Indian rhinoceros, the tapestries. Oh, now what was interesting was in the Merriam-Webster reference, I saw that the unicorn is referred to in the Bible. So we have a whole paragraph here that discusses the unicorn in the Bible, and it even goes down to discussing the unicorns purifying the poisoned waters. So this could be a really interesting second paragraph full of information. And I'm going to go back here. And again, I'm going to paste it. Make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. And again, not because I'm going to steal any of this information, but I like to have it in front of me. I'm going to go get where we got this from. I like to have this in front of me as I start to write the paper. So here are two of my sources, and let's go back. I know a lot of clicking around today. I hope I don't make anyone seasick. And we'll talk about this Ringling Brothers unicorn. So we would read this whole article. So as I'm reading this, it says, the animals arrived at our show in Houston in July. We don't know how. They were just there. Just there. So they pretend like they don't know where he came from. They are the only unicorns in the world. They're all males. We believe that they're brothers. So here is all this information. So we're going to have to decide if this is going to fit into our paper or not. And the truth is, a lot of this doesn't fit into our paper. It's really interesting, but it just doesn't really fit into our paper. It might fit in as a good hook. It might fit in as something that would grab someone's attention. And so, for that reason, I will go ahead, and then I'm going to do this. I'm going to hit enter, and I'll put hook. And I will paste the Chicago Tribune in there. Again, I pasted it onto that big document, and I'm also going to copy the New York Post and put it there. And see, now I'm starting to leave a paper trail of the information that I'm using to write this paper and how I'm supporting my claims. So you might be asking yourself, well, what's a hook? We haven't really talked about a hook yet. Well, a hook is anything that gets someone interested in your writing. And I could see how talking about a time when unicorns supposedly roamed the earth with Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus could catch someone's attention. So I would say something like, did you know that Ringling Brothers and Barnum, Barnum, maybe that's just it. And Barnum Bailey Circus had a living unicorn in their shows in the 1980s. So asking a question is a good way to have a hook. So now we've compiled a hook. We've compiled some different information about unicorns, and I might try for a new thesis statement. I might say, and I'm just good, I should be good here. Okay. I might try to say, unicorns are a mythical creature. They were said to be very beautiful. And so the reason I'm going to say they were said to be very beautiful, that part, beautiful, becomes our second paragraph. And in that second paragraph, I can describe the ways in which they were beautiful. So they were said to be very beautiful. They are mentioned in the Bible. And I think we had talked about their horns had magical powers. And their horns, now, I could say magical powers, but then my whole third paragraph would only be about their magical powers. And one of the things I remember is their horns are related to rhinoceroses and maybe some other things that we saw in the definition. So I want to say, and their horns are what created the main source of mystery throughout the ages. I really stretched for that one. But I might be able to tidy that up, okay, when we get to it. But I want to be able to talk about more than just their horns being magic. I want to be able to talk about if their horns were rhinoceros's horn or if it was a different kind of creature's horn. So I don't know quite what I want to say there, but that's my way of saying it. So I think this is a good place to leave off today. We've compiled a little bit more information. We still have our pre-writing up here, and this is what kind of has helped guide me. I've gotten some information off the internet that I'm going to readjust into my own words. Most likely we'll get into that next week. And I've also given potential for a hook. This is our opening statement, and a potential for maybe a thesis. And then we will get into transitioning and how we are going to write our next paragraph. So I think with all that being said, we are at a good spot to quit this week. Sorry I didn't have any mythical creatures with me. All my pets are sleeping. And sometimes I like to just let them sleep when they're quiet because they're like little babies. And I wake them up and they drive me crazy all day. So anyhow, I hope you guys are doing well and, staying healthy. It looks like it's a beautiful day out there. So I hope you're logged in and getting some work done, but then I hope you get outside and enjoy it. Take care. We'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.